but I've also written a book around 20 years of experience in the similarities between relationship success or poor relationship outcomes and business. I am available at themiddlegroundbook.com, our website, and on The Middle Ground Book on Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, and Middle Ground Book on Instagram.
Perfect. So take us through the genesis of this. How did you get started discussing relationships and helping others find what it is that they're looking for?
By accident. I was not interested by any means in discussing relationships, writing a book around relationships, providing coaching for it. But the genesis of it really began around 15 years ago. 15 years ago, I had my first role as a leader within a sales and marketing organization. And in that organization, I found that individuals that had great success professionally were struggling with their relationships. And those that wanted great relationship outcomes did not know how to get them. So I began writing blogs and articles on the early stages of Facebook, early stages. I had a WordPress site just to get my ideas and thoughts out there. Fast forward, I went through a really bad, really tough divorce. And from that, I spent 2 years in counseling. From the 2 years of that counseling, that's where I determined that the relationship outcome was my fault and I need to do a better job in order to be the best man that I could be for my next and my final spouse. So in those 2 years, I determined kind of the framework for the middle ground. And I learned that the relationship outcome was completely my fault. It was within my control. And I ignored some things within me and within that other person that led to the poor outcome. So I now state that at the middle ground, anyone is in control and can get the great relationship outcomes that they're seeking. All they have to do is know who they are, know what they want, know who they qualify for, and with whom they qualify for, know what they want from you.
I would say that takes courage, Glenn, because I went through a similar, I don't want to say revelation, but I did some self reflection and I began to understand that there are certain areas in my life that I was lacking. And for me to admit to myself that was a very humbling experience because from the outside looking in, a lot of people thought that, Terrain, you're a great catch, you're a nice guy, you're this and you're that. But nice guys have flaws,
We do. Yep.
right?
Nice clients have fault. And a lot of the flaws come just over time. They're learned behaviors, intentional or unintentional. And it's still your job as a nice guy to be the best version of yourself to get the relationship outcome you want.
So when you were going through the therapy and you came to this realization that, hey, a lot of this is on my shoulders. I had to be a better man, but before I become a better man, I had to be a better person. And you identify what went wrong and your contribution
Mhm.
to that. When you're working with people to figure that out for themselves, what are some of the commonalities that are preventing them from having that type of self-realization in their journey?
Ego and delusion. So I was at the point where ego and delusion would not allow me to accept responsibility for the breakdown in that marriage, and thus the breakdown in my dating outcomes. Ego, from the standpoint of saying, it can't be me. I am great. I'm a great catch. I have great education. I'm in great shape. I look okay. I think I look all right. And people love being around me. Delusion, saying that I deserve, which is the worst phrase any person can say, this type of outcome from this person. And if only she or he would make these changes, everything would be great. So in my sessions, things that sessions and then the lead up to this book, which was a series of interviews that kind of formed this ideology, those were the two things that limited people from acknowledging that they were the problem in their dating outcome.
So it was not as simple as, you know what, Glenn, my name is Terrain.
Hmm.
I am the table, so I don't have to bring
Oh
anything
God,
to the table, right?
toxic, baby, toxic.
But you hear that quite a bit where it's like, okay, this is what I have. Let me give you, I'll break it down. One thing that I heard from someone. I'm in my 30s.
Hmm.
I'm above average in looks. This is what's conveying. And I have this type of job and I drive this kind of a car and this is my education. But to get someone to understand that, saying that, hey, that is not, and that may not be enough for the type of person you're looking for. How do you have that conversation where you're trying to get them to understand, one, what it is that they're looking for, and two, how to attract what they're actually looking for?
Well, the first thing that I say is, congratulations, you're an adult. So you have a car, you're paying for it, you pay the insurance. I hope, God, I hope, because you guys can't drive. You have your own place, you have a great job, and you have your education. Man or woman, you are now an official adult. So you are doing a great you're doing a great job as an adult, doing the work that it needs to be considered an adult in life. The second piece is, with that, let's move past those things as the table. The table has nothing to do with you. I have two books, part one and part two of The Middle Ground, How to Get Great Dating Outcomes in a Modern World. In part two, I talk about this terminology, I am the table. As I promoted part one, that is all I heard. Over 100 podcasts, 100 interviews. I heard I am the table, and I am the table for a number of reasons. You are not the table. The relationship is the table. You have to bring something to the relationship of value. And one of the illustrations that I use is Thanksgiving. Everyone here has attended Thanksgiving. I don't think that's toxic or taboo yet, but everyone here has attended attended a Thanksgiving dinner. Who gets the worst look? The person who comes to Thanksgiving empty-handed. You need to stop and get cups, plates, forks, knives, napkins, drinks, soda or pop, depending on where you live. And you got to bring something. If you don't, you're going to hear it from mom and dad, you're going to hear it from grandma and grandpa, auntie and uncle, cousin, sister, brother, and all of their friends. But the reality is, everybody else for Thanksgiving contributed to an amazing meal and an amazing memory. And what we have to do is move past the material as the source of creating the table and looking at the relationship as the table. And the relationship takes the understanding that it's not about you, and it's going to take sacrifice and investment to get the outcome you want.
Sitting in a group of people, you and I, we discussed this earlier, where I'm a part of two group chats, one that's mostly male and one is that is mostly female.
Mhm.
And their complaints about the opposite sex are very similar in nature. And sometimes I look at them and I'm like, you guys are just different sides of the same coin.
Mhm.
It's a very gendered argument. He's not this, he's not that. She
Mm.
won't do this, she
Mm.
won't do that. And it brought me to a conversation that I once had with someone who was looking to find love, and she was finding it in all the wrong places. And I simply went to her, I was like, what is it that you want? And what is it that you bring to the relationship that you would have? And she turned to me, she said, Terrain, no one has ever asked me that question. I was like, okay, let's reverse it.
Mm.
When you go for a job and you're looking for a job, you research the job, right? You look at,
Mhm.
okay, this is the salary, this is the benefit, this is how I could fit in because this is what I can bring to the job, and this is what the job is going to bring to me as compensation or as a reward. And she was able to tune into that analogy. And I think many of us seem to forget, as you mentioned, the Thanksgiving comparison. If you show up with your hand empty, people going to look at you kind of funny because you're supposed to bring something. Now, if you're going to show up to Thanksgiving dinner and say, you know what, baby, I am the table, I'm going to eat before everyone else,
Mm.
I'm going to kick my feet up, and you're going to serve me, you're going to be on your backside out that front door because no one's going to tolerate that. And I think sometimes we are starting to not love each other in the way that we want to love each other. We're starting to tolerate each other, and worse, we're not even having these types of conversations. So, what would you want to see change maybe in the relationships going forward between two people who want to get into that type of situation?
I would say the number one thing that people need to understand is that the relationship is not about just serving you, it's about coming to serve. If you look at the relationship, ladies, he needs to be 6 foot, make six figures, have a six pack, have 6 times 2 in length. If he needs to do all of that just to qualify, the question that you need to ask yourself is, who am I and what do I bring to him? Because you named everything physical and provision. What are you bringing to the table that matches physical and provision? So I say come to it saying, hey, I met this great guy. He does all this, like you talked about a job. He has a great career. He's working really well. He's in the community. He's known. He has a little bit of stature. And I would really like to get to know him. If I were to get to know him, what would he want from me? That is a totally different shift than saying, I am all these things and he needs to want me. Men, if you are out here and you meet a woman and a woman is, what's the median height? 5'6", 138. Great. She's got body goals. She's a girl boss, baddie, or a diva. Pick your favorite term. And she has a lot going on for her, and she has great relationships with the people around her. What is she looking for? And if you're able to articulate what she's looking for, then you can start to go into that relationship dynamic with that servant mindset in mind. But right now, the number one thing we need to do is we got to stop going into relationships saying what's in it for me. We have to be able to say, what can I give? Because the reality is most people are not emotionally stable enough, financially stable enough, spiritually stable enough to be successful in a relationship. So you have to be willing to acknowledge that so you can get the help, work on it, and then get back into the relationship pool so you can get the outcome you deserve.
And I would add to that, I think that men and women who are separating themselves more and more each day, they need to be less tribal. You need to speak to the other group of people. So for the men out there, what Gunn is saying, I 100% agree. But on top of that, you need to understand the women. And for the women out there, you need to understand the men. One of the worst things, and I will say this until I pass away, Glenn, is that men, stop surrounding yourself with people that's going to tell you exactly what you want to hear, who are complaining about women the same way, who maybe are stuck in the situation similar to you, who are not showing any growth, because you want to be inspired by the men to be better, perform better, and then obtain what it is that you want, because what you want comes with a cost. You have to pay a cost. It's like any investment. You have RSPs, you have your 401k, you put money in there that you've earned. Invest in yourself to get the woman that you want. And for the women out there, same thing. Invest in yourself to get what you want. If you're not where you are, where you want to be in life, that's perfectly fine. I'm not there. And from what Glenn's saying, there's a point in his life that he wasn't there. He did the work. I did the work. We all need to do the work. So one thing I want to touch on, Glenn, is about your books. When you mentioned the middle ground, describe to us what that actually means and how that is applicable to each and every one of us.
Yeah, the middle ground basically means that getting the relationship outcome means that you are going to have to step out of yourself and in order to see the other side's point of view. The middle ground basically means exactly what it is. It's not my way, it's not your way, it's one way and the truth's way. What is the best way for us to get what we're both looking for, which is a phenomenal relationship outcome? What I talked about in part one was how we got here. There was a change societal for those of us in North America that led to what we call the breakdown of the family. When the breakdown of the family occurred, the relationship dynamic for the next generation suffered. And each generation afterwards has its own version of that suffering off of trained or communicated traumas, not necessarily their own trauma. So that's chapter one. Chapter 2 and 3, we talk about the 6 type of men and the 6 type of women. So at the middle ground, we believe the main reason you're not getting the relationship outcome you want, trigger warning, is because you are aligned with the wrong man or the wrong woman. Who are the 6 type of men? Ladies, you already know them. Let's say them all together. Boys, boys, F boys, city boys, y'all favorite. Guys or dudes, males, men, either traditional or modern, and high value men. For women, we have parallels. We have girls, we have city girls, or, for the streets, or the thotties, whatever you want to call them. Gals or chicks, females, women, modern or traditional, and then high value women. We find that in most instances within this space, in the 2 groups you're a part of, you have a lot of females, a lot of modern women, and a lot of city girls who are all dating the same type of guy. They're dating the city boy, they're dating the male, and they're upset with their relationship outcomes.
For those who are watching on Facebook, YouTube, and my social media, please follow along for more incredible interviews and subscribe for another interview like the ones we have with my new best friend, Glenn. And we will be back for